Hello and welcome to Markets at 12. This is Varsha Chandrani. Let's look at how the markets are doing. Well, host of positive factors, among them CPI numbers coming cooler than anticipated. Good day for the markets. Quite a few of your stocks may be buzzing. Let's see what Nifty is. Well, Nifty is quite good number. It's up almost 0.38%. Let's see who are the gainers when it comes to Nifty 50. You have HDFC Life, buzzing on the back of earnings. Good performance, did well in cutthroat competition. While if you see SBI Life is also buzzing, and Adani Ports and Adani Enterprises, basically all Adani companies are buzzing. Now this is on the back of news of Hindenburg shutting down. We'll of course speak more about that. Then you have BEL on the gainers list as well. Shriram Finance. If you see the sectoral heat map, all the sectors are actually green, except Nifty Pharma, Nifty FMCG and Nifty IT as well. There you go. PSU Bank is up almost 2.77%. Realty is up 1.7%. Nifty FMCG, if you see, it's down 0.8%. Well, if I were to talk about the advance decline ratio, let's pull that up also. 1700 odd advances. There you go, 1700 odd advances versus 384 declines. If I were to talk about the broader markets, let's see what broader markets are doing. Nifty Mid Cap 150, it's good. It's actually good, quite 1.13% up. Nifty Small Cap 250, if you see, is up 1.22%. Let's see the gainers when it comes to Nifty Mid Cap 150. You have IDBI Bank. Then you have LTTS came out with earnings, revised guidance down, but optimistic about the deal wins. In the management is actually optimistic. Then RVNL is actually buzzing on the back of order wins, is up almost 10% in trade today. Paytm is also buzzing. This is on the back of MK notes. MK had come out with a note on Paytm. Then if I were to talk about the losers, you have Thermax, Oracle, Kalyan Jewelers, Voltas among the losers when it comes to Nifty Mid Cap 150. But let's talk about Nifty Small Cap 250. If I were to talk about the gainers, you have Ircon, Jupiter Wagons, Praj Industries. Well, sugar stocks are actually buzzing now. This is on the back of expectations of ethanol price hike. That we are seeing. This is because all the if I were to see, Dhampur is up almost 6%. Sri Renuka is up 4%. And if I were to talk about the Praj Industries also buzzing on the back of the same news. EID Parry is up. There you go. Praj Industries is up 5.2%. So good when it comes to Nifty, mid cap and small cap 250. Positive note that we are seeing. But moving ahead, a big news wherein Hindenburg Research, the US-based short seller that had targeted several business entities, including the Adani Group, is going to be disbanded, said founder Nate Anderson. Sajid brings us the details.
Ahead of the Trump inauguration, we've seen a note from Nate Anderson, who is the founder of Hindenburg Research, that he's disbanding the entire research of Hindenburg. Hindenburg was formed in 2017 as a research and investment firm. Nate Anderson announced yesterday that he's disbanding the entire Hindenburg Research, and he's saying he claims that because he has finished in the pipeline of ideas it was working on. Anderson has decided that he would now disband Hindenburg. Nate also claims that over a period of last 7 to 8 years, when they have released nearly a dozen reports. They've been, they have been able to get the regulatory authorities to charge over 100 individuals for civil and criminal liabilities, and the regulators are investigating those individuals and entities because of the reports that has been released by Hindenburg Research. So the short seller was known for the reports. The first report came in 2020, where he released the report on a startup, auto startup, which is called Nikola. Later, regulatory interventions and regulatory investigations saw some kind of actions taken against the promoters of Nikola there. Subsequently, they have released nearly a dozen reports, which include reports of Carl Icahn's Icahn Enterprises auto retailer Carvana and the Adani group. If you look at the modus operandi, it basically works on a research report, then sells it to hedge funds and investors, and simultaneously releases it, the report in public domain so that it can benefit from the shorts there. There has been a heightened regulatory action and scrutiny of short sellers in the US, with the US Department of Justice and US Securities and Exchange Commission looking at the short sellers and the short sellers report. In fact, after the Adani Group report, the Indian regulator also looked at Hindenburg, and as a result of that, they issued a show cause notice to Hindenburg for violation of several regulations with respect to research reports, research analyst regulations, and other regulations which were violated as part of the report. What actually Hindenburg did in this case was creating shorts using overseas instruments which are linked to India, which could be bonds, which could be MSCI India indices, and or the ODI route to short on Indian equities and Indian market, and thereby gain profit there. There has been a multi-jurisdictional scrutiny and cooperation between regulators in India and the US, as a result of which SEBI issued a show cause notice to Hindenburg, and Hindenburg is yet to respond to the SEBI show cause notice as per last reports. So the research agency has been disbanded, but I think the investigations will continue, and let's see how it goes forward from here.
Well, Hindenburg yet to respond to SEBI show cause notice as per the last reports. But on that, let me bring my colleague Tamanna Inamdar. Tamanna, for all this happening, what's your view on this?
So if you look at the letter, Varsha, that Nate Anderson, the founder of Hindenburg, has put out today, it's an interesting read, because at the end of the letter, you'll probably have less answers than at the beginning. The letter talks about how he never played golf, how he wasn't good at finance, how he was overlooked in every job he did. I'm not sure why all of that context was necessary today. He's saying, I wanted to shake empires and I have done that, but there is no real concrete reason for him shutting shop. Now remember, Hindenburg and their reports have managed to shake up companies and stock markets the world over. We all remember the attack which took place in early 2023 and the impact that it had on the Indian markets, on global perception of the Indian markets as well. Of course, it wasn't just Adani Group stocks which tanked, it was the entire market that saw the impact of that. Now, the question is, why has he decided to shut shop now? This comes ahead of Donald Trump taking oath on the 20th of January. This comes after the lead investigator, the lead attorney in the Department of Justice, who has filed charges against people in this case, has stepped down. And this comes even as criticism is growing for the trumped-up charges in the first place. So is this just a coincidence? Now, his reasons are very vague. His reasons are telling us what the reasons aren't. He's saying, I have had no particular issue, I don't have any personal issue, I don't have any health reasons, but now the time has come to close this. I don't want my whole life to be about Hindenburg. Now, just to get an idea on that and the impact that it's had, because like we saw the impact on the stocks today, and that's of course expected. But the bigger picture here, Deven Choksey joining us, DRChokesey Investment Managers, and speaking with Bhumika Batra, partner Crawford Bailey & Co. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us on the show today. Bhumika, I'll begin with you. At first glance, the question that comes to mind is Nate Anderson trying to escape legal action against him? And is this the best way for him to do it? By just saying, okay, now I'm done.
No, not at all. I don't think so that by doing this, he can escape legal action at all. And if that is what is the thought process, it's too naive to my mind so to do that. But coming to that, I would rather read his letter in a more poignant manner, because if you see the letter, he's very categorically saying that he's not going away. It's the Hindenburg firm going away. So I don't think we should write off Nate Anderson per se as the person. It may be just the firm that is changing hands to that. More so, if you look at his history, he has been doing this even prior to starting Hindenburg. He started in 2017, where he started the Hindenburg Research part. But prior to that, he's already made 3 or 4 reports since 14. So it's not that he is tied up to the firm that he's talking about. He may be shutting shop on the firm. Personal view is I would not write off Nate Anderson as a person to get away from what he has been doing. And this has clear indications from his letter as well, if you read through it and carefully in few paragraphs.
No, I did. And you know, he goes on to say, I want to talk about what I used to do in Hindenburg, how we used to collect data, you know, share videos on what the process, etc. is. But if he wants to do the same thing, then why change the name of the company? Why shut shop and start? You know, the timing, something is not right here. The timing makes no sense. The reasons makes no sense. And the kind of self-aggrandization and victim card that is being played, that I don't come from a finance background, I don't come from a rich family. I mean, what is he trying to say? What does that have to do with anything?
No, on that part, I agree with you. It's more of playing around with words. It's just since there has been no report which has garnered attention in the recent past, it's this recent past which is leading him to garner attention, so to say so. But the timing and the disclosure and the wordings don't match up to what the status of him today is as the person. I'm more interested in to see him as the person in the future steps rather than reading into his letter more on what his past has been.
Deven bhai, you know, what have you made of this? Of course, there has been a reaction. There is a sense that he has given up this end of a battle. Over time, the impact of what Nate Anderson has been doing, and I restrict his impact to the Indian context because those have been his biggest quote-unquote attacks, has been dissipating. People are taking it less and less seriously. Do you see that also as a reason that there has been a reaction today?
So, Taman, I think we'll put across, few points in perspective, especially since you mentioned Indian stocks, in particular, Adani Group. What he has done is basically has used, the offshore derivative in the bond portfolio to basically attack the listed stocks in the market. He never came to the listed market to operate the market because I think that is probably driven far better with the regulation. It is unfortunate part that the offshore derivative is not coming under the purview of the regulator, and that's where somebody has found the loophole in the system, and he played around with this particular loophole. So that is a given history now. Now, second most important point in the entire journey of my capital market, I have understood one thing. When you are a short seller, you are not alone. You have to be backed by somebody who has got financially stronger muscle than you. Suppose if Hindenburg's current journey is more of an analytical aspects, somebody has, created a front in form of Hindenburg, and probably, he has operated on that particular front. That is not difficult to find out. That is not difficult to understand either. So in my viewpoint, I think whatever may be the reason for which the shop is shut down, but the fact remains that there are people who have been operating in back, and this particular company has been in front. Till the point of time, that particular situation comes to conclusion. I don't know, whether one could possibly talk more about Hindenburg or for that matter, Anderson in this case.
That's a very important point, Deven bhai. You're saying that Nate Anderson might just be the face of this particular thing. It's a much deeper story, and those actors are not out in the open till now. Then, my question, very simple, maybe sounding naive question is that is it enough to say, okay, Tata, bye-bye, now I'm done? For example, if someone attacks another person, today we have a story of an attack and a horrific attack on an actor. Someone's attacked another person, is a burglar, and then after that attack says, now I have left all of this and I'm moving on. Is that going to be enough? Shouldn't there now be an investigation into what exactly was the reason for the reports being put out, who is behind it, and who pays the price? Because Indian investors paid the price.
Yes, I think the ask is absolutely fair in my viewpoint. And I think it's a regulator who basically, I think, would move first. But the regulator can only write to the counterparty in the US markets, I think in SEC in this case, about, I think, taking up this particular thing further, since they don't have the jurisdiction. I don't think that I think they have the teeth to get this particular person, and behind this person, I think, who exactly has been operating. But the fact remains that I think till the time you find out, I think, who has been operating behind this front, I don't think that I think one is getting any conclusive answer to this. And how to prevent this kind of a situation, I'm more interested in this, because as the country, we are growing from a 5 trillion market cap. I think we would be 15 trillion market cap in next 10 years. Very likely that I think they will be attracting a lot of such kind of entities who would probably, I think, try to milk the situation in which I think when we are operating. So if the regulations remain weak, and if they don't have enough amount of arms to, I think, take care of the untoward situation like what we have seen in this case, probably I think we will remain most vulnerable. So I think the ask should be that whether our regulators and the government is wanting to create, I think, a further amount of regulatory aspects by which I think such kind of activity is prevented from happening in future.
I want to get your take on that, Bhumi. Consequences to the action. Yes, there is a SEBI investigation. Yes, there have been petitions in the Supreme Court. It's a question of jurisdiction. But then, let's be fair, question of jurisdiction then should apply on both sides. Should there be consequences for the action? And the point I made, can you, after wreaking damage, and you may be justified in your mind, Nate Anderson thinks he's a hero, but can you just one day say, now shut her down, now I'm walking away?
No, absolutely not. In fact, just taking forward from your previous question, I wanted to add to that. Investigation, very much, yes. The question comes who, and the question comes how. As you started in the beginning of it with the Trump coming into picture, the change in the regime and everything, that's what's the interesting point as to whether the investigation will lead to it. And the question is how and who's going to lead to it. That's on the global front. Coming to the India front, undoubtedly there has to be. You cannot stand up one day after causing all the damage and say that I'm walking away. Then it comes to our regulators to use the teeth that they have to make sure that the investigation reaches its logical conclusion, very much.
Okay, so then my question is, what is the legal action expected? Do you think that this is the time for courts to come in? Bhumi, what is in the realm of possibility? Can you just give us a sense there?
Now, see, it's not on the courts on a suo motu action to come into the realm in the picture. It has to be taken from the process which is laid down in the law, which is very well provided for. We already have the investigation going on that has to reach in its logical conclusion by following the various possible steps that are there to have the individuals interviewed to that extent, to have their statements on record. So all that process will have to be followed. Let's be realistic. We have to abide by the legal system and the steps to be followed in there.
Okay, Abijit Mitra joining our conversation. He's Senior Fellow, Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. We'll just go to him in a second from now. But, let me just get Deven Bhai's call on this. And we're sitting in the middle of live market, Deven Bhai. Just what is the market impact of this? You've seen stocks run up as a response, because remember, this was seen as an attack on the country, not just on one group or one company. What do you think will be the response, and what would be the strategy after this has come about? How significant is this from a market perspective?
So, Tamanna, the matured investors do have the understanding about the subject. The underlying infrastructure assets which the Adani Group has created, I think they have been created over a longer period of time. assuming that I think these assets have been created at a dollar to rupee value of, say, for example, 55, because I think it has been created over the last 20 years. So I would take an average middle path, I think, say 55. Now, if these particular assets are today quoting at a valuation which is far more higher than probably I think what they value at which it is being created, if somebody wants to enter into India market and buy those assets, the best alternative for them is to basically bring down the market valuation of the stocks so that they can enter at a favorable price. That is simply understood. Now, those investors who are seasoned investors, those who are long-term investors, they do understand the value of infrastructure assets because they do know that I think any assets which have been created over the last 20 years, if one has to replicate the entire journey of creating these assets for another 20 years, it will cost significantly higher given the current cost structure. And at the same time, these assets are basically earning now the profits. They are generating cash. So obviously in next 25, 40, 50 years, by which I think these assets would continue to produce that, they are something going to be fundamentally very, very strong proposition for the group as a whole, Adani Group as a whole. We also look at this aspect that 85,000 crore worth of EBITDA making group with a debt of around 240,000 crore is not at all and I think an inevitable threat unless I think those assets stops operating. If these assets are working and if the debt equity and against the EBITDA that their company is earning with the 20% growth rate, I don't think that that is a concern for any investor. So market investor would look at these aspects and then they would invest in a falling market or a crashing stock price. They would probably I think take this opportunity.
Abijit Mitra is joining us now on the show as well. He's Senior Fellow, Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. Abijit, hi, I'm speaking to you after a while, so good to chat. And on an interesting day, what was your reaction when you saw the news and read the letter from Nate Anderson? Abijit, can you hear me? All right, we seem to have a problem with that audio. We'll just fix it in a second from now and get Abijit Mitra's views as well in. Bhumika, just try and explain on a point which you made in the start of our conversation on what happens to ongoing cases that might be there against Nate Anderson, and does he have any kind of immunity from any further legal action if it comes in?
Absolutely not. There is no immunity merely because you decide to shut shop and walk away. The investigations will continue. The investigations will have their proper implications under law and will have to follow the due legal course which is there. If that be the case, it's the easiest thing to do. I do all the damage, I shut a shop and I walk away. Sorry, it doesn't work that way, at least as far as India is concerned.
Vijit, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Tamanna. Thank you.
Hi, good to speak to you after a while. So my question to you was, what was your reaction when you heard the news and read the letter?
Well, first was just sheer joy, the joy of being right. But, this has always been an extraordinarily suspicious company because, short selling depends a lot. Research is a very misleading word. There is part research and there's part rumor mongering that goes into short selling because you're exploiting systemic distortions, which may or may not be true, into inducing a sort of market meltdown where you make money. So fundamentally, it's a very, let's put it this way, it's a ethically questionable sort of a situation. But then for a company that demands transparency, to itself be so completely non-transparent was very, very suspicious. Specifically, the political targeting of one company, which had very significant political overtones to it, and very little in terms of substance. So we still don't know who the backers of Hindenburg are, who the funders are, who are the board of directors. So much so we don't even know where their office is because their website doesn't even list their office out, right? How they get in touch with people, what bona fides do they present? I mean, if you don't have a reputation behind you, how do you get people to talk to you without your bona fides in order, right? There have all been question marks about this company for a very, very long time. And the shutting down, especially the founder's statement, it actually says nothing. It leaves more questions unanswered. And it adds to this whole thing of suspicion, this sort of atmosphere of suspicion that surrounds this company, its motives, and the legality of what it actually does.
Okay, so motives and legality. But now what now? So you felt joy, maybe others did, and joy of being proven right is always there. But then my question is, Abijit, and I posed this earlier, if you have mounted an attack like this, can you now say, okay, now I'm retired from this job, and then the consequences end there?
No. So there is no, I don't know about the statute of limitations, but the consequences don't end when the company ends. The consequences end when the statute of limitation ends, which I really don't know how long it is in New York specifically. But it should be around 5 to 7 years at least. So at least for the next 5 to 7 years, Anderson and Hindenburg are not immune to the consequences of what they've done. The issue is, can we actually prove criminality out here? You see, the problem in US law is you can't just order an investigation into someone on mere suspicion. You have to have probable cause for illegality to order that investigation. However, precedent now means the precedent that the Democrats and George Soros's own attorneys, he does this lawfare where he nominates attorneys who then get voted in by the Democrats, attorney generals. They themselves have set the precedent with the former president and future president Donald Trump, that on mere suspicion you can instigate an inquiry, and the inquiry can then find wrongdoing. This used to be the absolute red line which no American government would cross. That was crossed with Donald Trump. I think we should use a lot of political capital that we have into doing the same thing into Anderson and Hindenburg specifically.
Just one last point, Abijit, and this is from the domestic perspective, because now what Nate Anderson does and where this whole case goes legally in the US, we'll see. But there were a lot of shops running on the basis of the Hindenburg report in India, domestically, politically. This was a reason for attack, right? It gave people who wanted to mount an attack a sense of legitimacy. Does that get blunted now?
Look, I thought we already saw it get very seriously blunted even during the lifetime of Hindenburg, because you remember the first report when it came out did quite some serious damage to Adani in the stock markets. But when they got out the second report last year, it was literally a blip. The stock market maybe reacted for 2-3 hours, and by the next day, the stocks were up right where they were. So, this was very much a case of diminishing returns. Now, as for the market that there is attacking India, calling it, a diminishing democracy or whatever, I don't know what the latest term is, intolerance, etc., etc. This is a market, I think even hardcore believers are beginning to lose faith. So I believe even that market is contracting. If you saw the latest figures from the Washington Post, their digital readership has declined by 90%. And we should really be thanking their star columnist Rana Ayub and their local correspondent Jerry Shee for that market contraction. These people don't respond to a market demand. They are so ideologically driven. They don't care what the market is demanding. And at some point, the market is a self-correcting mechanism. It can see when you're going on negativity, and it's not coming true. It's like cry wolf. Your credibility gets eroded.
All right. Thank you for that, Abijit. Thank you so much, Bhumika. Thank you, Deven bhai, for joining us today for this short conversation. We're going to continue our coverage on this, because does this really end here? Does Nathan Anderson get away with now saying this is it? What about paying for the consequences he wreaked on investors in the Indian markets? All of those questions definitely remain. We'll take a very short break here, but stay tuned. A lot more coming up on the other side on NDTV Profit.